Hey everyone, this is Sam Hudson, the CEO of This Quality. If you do enjoy these live streams, consider donating by going to thisquality.com/donate to support local voices in your community. You'll also be supporting the development of our brand new media organisation. We are aiming at changing the mainstream media to be less biased. If you believe in that, consider contributing today for just $1 or even 99 cents. It doesn't matter how much you donate because it all counts.
Come back tomorrow. You know it's not enough that I can make you laugh. Why try to borrow even more time you never have? It's too late, too late, too late, too late. Slide down the rooftop, slide down the rooftop. It's too late, too late, too late, too late. You'd have to rebuild me from the ground up, from the ground up. There's always something, and I can try to change, but you want something else. Why cut off your wings? You could change the world and I'd still be a mess. It's too late, too late, too late, too late. Slide down the rooftop, slide down the rooftop. It's too late, too late, too late, too late. You'd have to rebuild me from the ground up, from the ground up. Oh, oh, you wanna tear down these walls, and I know you can do anything, but it's too late, too late, too late, too late. Slide down the rooftop, slide down the rooftop, down the rooftop. Slide down the rooftop. It's too late, too late, too late, too late. You'd have to rebuild me from the ground up, from the ground up. try to change, but you want something else. Why cut off your wings? You could change the world and I'd still be a mess. It's too late, too late, too late, too late. Slide down the rooftop, slide down the rooftop, slide down the rooftop, slide down the rooftop. Come back tomorrow. You know I might admit I wanted you to stay.
Hello everyone, welcome to this exclusive live stream to This Quality featuring Otaki Candidate Michael Kay for ATTICA and Mana Candidate Mike Isles for ATTICA. Hello guys, how's it going?
Oh, good, mate.
Awesome. So, yes, another stream, another night. So if you're new here, just make sure you go and share the stream. Make sure you like it and feel free to leave a comment because Michael Kay and Mike would love to speak to you at the end of the stream and answer your questions. Without further ado, before I get into everything, I'm just going to do a little plug. So make sure you go to thisquality.com/donate to support these live streams if you think that these have a potential. It just keeps them running because as a company it adds to a cost of things, but your support matters. It is greatly appreciated. So I'll give the show to Michael Kay and Mike Isles in a moment, but what I'm just going to tell you is that this live stream is about productive wetlands. What the heck are they? What are they doing? You know, what exactly is it? I can see Mike Isles laughing at me just then. But yes, no, I'll lead it on to Michael Kay. He can introduce himself, and then Michael Kay will most likely pass it on to Mike Isles throughout this live stream. So here we go. The stage is yours. So go ahead.
No worries. Stood on a few stages. This is a very comfortable one because it's at home. Hey, and we're going to keep on doing this, guys. Like, we're going to, once the election's over, we're planning on keeping up the momentum, and we're really looking at trying to carry on with the things that are really dear to us, that we make sure that we do keep getting good results. Like, we feel that we've had really good results with this electoral campaign. We've made great connections with people, and like it's something that can really help in the future to get better outcomes. And so tonight, what we're the little Facebook Live I did today, I purposely went down because there's two major projects. Okay, so and they're both really looking like they'll be fully funded, and they're called wetland projects. And there's and this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. This is part of an idea that we have to be really careful with how we sort of what we do with the environment and all that sort of thing. And nothing filters water like a wetland. But realistically, we're sort of in the infancy stage of creating these sorts of things, and maybe we've just rushed a little bit into it. And as we've sort of gone into almost what you'd call agroecology, where we've tried to, through a botanist's eyes or through a planner's eyes, we've tried to sort of plan how we regenerate back, say, things like the highway, how we sort of try and compensate for the ill effects that have come from the development and the growth, especially in areas like of power per am, which is more hit by growth and housing, whereas where we have in the Levin location of a wetland, it's more about sort of a history of not really great forward thinking with wastewater management. As you may or may not know, depending on where you live, if you live in Levin, you know that the sewage was dumped in Lake Horowhenua for many, many years.
The most toxic lake.
Yeah. So, and you also know that, I'm pretty sure most people understand that the stormwater runs into the lake, and that stormwater is really subjected, or part of that catchment is our vegetable growing area. And, that produces an enormous amount of sediment into the lake, and that's why the lake is sort of it's got worse, not better. So it's been something that's been my life really for about 5 years, and it's something that I've had to very much learn as I go and listen to the want of the community, and try and interpret what is what actually is a wetland really at its best. And so going down to see the project that has been started at QE2 is equally, we could go over to the Hastings area, and we could look at sort of the projects that have been done in Hastings, which they're sort of more rapu swamped areas, and they've tried to bring back the bird life by planting, by forcibly keeping the waterways how it's imagined that they used to be. And the imagined word that I used there is very critical to this, because we're imagining this wrong. And we're also forgetting the biggest part of agroecology is keeping them productive, is actually keeping them healthy. So going down there today, I spent about 2 hours down there looking around, and the water in the waterways themselves is still. So that's not a very good design to start with, because the water should be flowing. The other big element there is it's been planted for beauty. So it's been planted as something that's fenced off. It has no other use than it's static. And what we've got to remember is that we're trying to impose something on the environment that's unnatural when we do that, because these environments had full biodiversity. They had big grazing birds. They had a lot more species than what we have today. So, and we can supplement that with flash grazing. So we can actually graze out, especially with lighter cattle or whatever we decide to use as a grazing element, sheep or whatever. Obviously, it's there is some pending tragedies with that when you use some different things, because if they're not used to grazing it, you'll drown animals in the wetlands themselves. But the biggest grazier that we've got is ourselves. If we harvest the flax and keep making it refresh and be lush, and take out that lost or sort of in purgatory nutrient that otherwise is going to go to groundwater, or it's going to go out into the sea. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring in the idea that yes, wetlands are good, but let's make them productive, and let's make them, rather than force a community to pay out of guilt, for the sins of our forefathers in a way, and pay huge rates and things like that, or the country pay huge borrowings to build these wetlands. These wetlands can more than self-fund. These wetlands can actually be something that generates income into the community, whilst being and maximising its productivity. So productivity is key to a wetland being an absolute viable thing. Now, here's the caveat. What we've done is what we tried, well, and it was all with best intentions. When the motorway went through, you can see that several designers, I would say, not just one, or several designs have been used to plant that area out, and they're not fit for purpose. In fact, they are actually a fire hazard. And so marram grass and toy and things like that, and scrubs that weren't really abundant here, like manuka and karnuka, that is in a terrible mix with wilding pines that we have an abundance of in the area. And we had a big event in New Zealand that was a big sort of shocking wake-up call, potentially to the Greens and the current government, because they took the grazing animals off in the Ohau area down south in the Mackenzie Basin, and because they sort of made the same mistake that Alan Savory did when he thought that the degradation to the environment was caused by the big graziers. But it sort of was, because they weren't being managed properly. That's what he found out after killing, 100,000 elephants. So what we did down there is we took the grazing animals out, and just like that wetland I visited today, we fenced it off and we did nothing with it. And it just went rank and it got crispy. And, now a fire has ravaged through and it's burnt homes. Now, unfortunately, these ideas, and this is the terminology that's used, these are natural corridors, but they are also a conduit corridor of a fire risk. Now, what we've done is imitate California, and California burns. No matter how much you want to wrestle with the idea of climate change, yes, it's getting warmer and all the rest of it, but you have to intensify your efforts to make sure that you keep things lush. So the one way that we know that you can keep things lush is by keeping good, healthy, lush ground cover to keep the soil moisture in, because it will change the soil temperature, and it will, oh, hang on, I've got a bloody stupid tweet. So it will keep the soil cool. And that's the critical thing. Remember that most of this country, or the lifted country, or the rolling country that this road goes through, is just blown sand dunes. So it's really important that that's like at least a 40 or 50 species mix of things that are lush, and something can flash over them and graze them. So you've got to be really, really careful what's planted. And there's noxious things that are planted in there, so they can't be grazed. And we've got a lot of gorse growing in there, and we've got a lot of things like lupin's okay. It can be sort of mulched around, but the design is not fit for purpose, and we can't replicate that. And we know that the National Party and the Labour Party want to build a 4-lane highway through, an extension of this, and that's great. We need that, but we don't need to create a fire hazard corridor that reaches right through our region and threatens all of our homes.
And what are the risks of that? Building the highway through this kind of wetland area.
Well, if it doesn't function, then it really only becomes a beautification project that's still, it's still carved a laneway to force water into disproportionately into some areas that it would have had a more equal distribution. And, there is an incredible amount of design that goes into this. But, if it isn't from the perspective of sort of like a permanent culture or permaculture, and it, yes, there is a place for what is essentially native to the area. Yeah, there's a place for that, but there's also a place to put exotics in there. And that I don't mean pine trees. I mean that, in some areas we need to have something that we know that stays lush, like bozo. where we've got to have something where there's a real high intensity, so that we're sinking huge tonnage of carbon to the soil where we need to. Like, it was sort of sad, the kaiakateas, like, I really want to grow kaiakateas. I learned my lesson real quickly with kaiakateas. You can't just plant them out in the open. They need cover until they actually get up. And so the kaiakateas, and the beautiful kaiakateas, they planted in that wetland, and they're really, really struggling. But, scrubby shit is only, the kānuka and the mānuka and all that sort of thing, it's getting a much higher bigger reputation than it deserves. It's only an intermediate tree for those upper protocarps, and those are the splendid trees, or the feeder trees, that basically, that's where all of the real power of the natural forest comes from, or the natural ecology. So
yes.
So our what we've been very lucky to have had done, and it's only because Soraya's a workaholic that it's been done, is she's detailed from quite a huge collection of books on natural fibres, and really detailed out things that I didn't know, which we'll get her on soon, and we'll have a chat about that. But there's a lot of things that I didn't know about our native flax and other fibres, and I think that they're quite inspiring along the lines of, it gives it a lot more weight, that this is more than possible. It's more than shovel ready. It's really sort of quite a sad thing that we aren't sort of already on our way doing this, because we would be in a much better situation. So getting back to your question, Sam,
Yes.
what's the possibility that we could have a big sweeping fire going through the Kapiti area because of the way that's been planted? We probably are at the first time we get a really we'd do it a really, really dry summer. This is all quite dry now. It's all ready. The only thing that sort of that is in the design that it has in its favour is there's a reasonable amount of water sources that firefighters can use. But this is how easy it could happen, and we've already seen it happen. Cars crash on the motorway and catch fire. So in the event that one catches fire on the motorway, and we've got those good strong Kapiti winds, there's a lot of homes that are behind large dry tinder stacks of gorse, and
basically they're at risk, and that's probably not a good idea, for them behind the scenes in the design kind of process.
We don't have the experience of knowing the noise of fire. When I was in Australia, people knew when fire was coming. Like, the reason why not as many people die in Australia is they know the song of the fire. Especially the original people, the Aboriginals, they know a fire is coming miles away, and it's sort of, it's quite amazing. We don't have that experience, and we're quite used to hearing crackles and pops and things like that. So yeah, that's something that when you consider that, with all the best intentions, we create one thing, but the OHAL event is being something where, and we're trying to repeat it. There's a story that unfortunately the whole of farming has not realised is a Trojan horse. So during the last 3 years, it's really troubled me, the Indigenous biodiversity policy, because it wasn't really written by us.
Is this from the current government?
Yeah, well, no, not really. That's probably not fair, really. It's actually, it's so old. It crosses both governments. They've almost had this in their inbox twice. Some of the sitting MPs that have been were just retired from or sat down from the House have actually seen this policy several times, and it's got as far as its first reading, and it's just been thrown out because it still persists in its same nature. It's talking about basically grabbing land on the premise that it's for kindness, and so I need to explain this because I know that this policy has an overwhelming support from social media, and that's what has been used to actually push or advance this policy. It was absolutely torrented through the first consultation process, basically by a Twitter army organised by Forest and Bird and Fish and Game, and so, you know, where it gives a false positive that everybody's happy with it. Maori, iwi, farming itself is not happy with it because we know that you can't take the graziers out, the grazing animals out, the foragers. You can't take them out of these broken scrubby areas and avoid fire, because that's like the highest thing that happened in this country was a lot of this country burnt in its inception, and it burnt from just simple eruptions. It burnt, like, if you're looking at things like Toitoi itself can spontaneously combust and burn. Just for no reason, you know, and just because it's got tinder crisp, and it just burns. It's a pampas. It tillers so rapidly that it actually gets to, it's starting to make its own compost, and then it sort of just burns. So that's why we haven't had pine poses us a huge risk because pine dries out the soil. And a lot of how forests are managed now means that basically there's a huge lot of litter that's around in there. So they basically have all their own kindling below them, and once a fire rips through, that's it. And these wilding pines, they're the same thing. You know, once these you know, there's not much. You know, you can make a very unprofitable harvest if you're going to tidy up the mess. You know, like, there's no money in it. So basically these big gangs and machines come in and they make a hell of a mess, erode all the soil and leave all this trash everywhere. And it's unless you get the grazing animals in there and start regenerating really quickly, these things can become, like they have down in Mackenzie country, they've become a real mess of gorse and wilding pines and things that do burn very, very readily. So so that's sort of, you know, the Indigenous Biodiversity Bill is sort of an extension of the same thinking. And so it's thought that it's kindness and we're going to bring this stuff back. Well, what actually happened down in Otago is the very things that they were trying to protect are now gone up in smoke. You know, and that's the flora and the fauna. And that's a real disaster. Because those had actually only really plumed in numbers because of the farmers that they're called tenure land, and those farming families had farmed them intergenerationally for years and had farmed them as conservationists. And I know a lot of people are going to be triggered by that because they say, well, farmers aren't conservationists. Well, when you live and work and have to survive in the Mackenzie Basin, if you're not a conservationist, you're down the road. It's like if you try to farm up the Otaki Gorge and you can't conserve soil, you're gone burger. So, you know, we're very privileged here in Otaki, or in Otaki itself, and, you know, in where I farm, because we're on Class 1 soils. So we shouldn't just make a leap and think that, you know, farmers don't don't know stuff. Even as a regenerative farmer, I do not ever underestimate the amount of knowledge that a what you call a chemical farmer knows about his own farm. Without him, you can't change that land for the best. So we go, that's, we've got Sarah's put that up on the website, that about the flax industry, about fibres, and and I really enjoyed reading that. And being a lazy bugger, it means that I've probably skipped a little bit of reading, or it could be worse than that. I'm probably going to have to go and read some of these books. Like this, we'll get her on in a minute, and I'll ask you a few questions and stuff about that. The other thing we want to talk about in the stream is there was a lot of
there was a lot of cut. Hang on, Michael. You're going to have to repeat yourself.
What has sort of... what's that?
Michael, you're going to have to repeat what you just said. It just cut out, sorry.
Yeah, but I think I'm back now.
Yes.
So, yeah, there was a lot of push for an early vote. And if you're sitting here now and you haven't voted, and you were going to vote for, say, something like Advance NZ, you may be reconsidering. And aren't you lucky that you didn't vote early? And the thing is it's sort of not over till the fat lady sings, and it's a good idea if you can just wait it out and see really what happens, because this election has been pretty somber. We don't really have a lot of policy from the major parties, really. We have I think that the Green Party really has become a state of California, and it's sort of parroting policies that we've seen in California do a lot of damage, and that's really sad, because I've got a hell of a lot of time for the original Green Party and for a lot of the members that are still stuck in that party, and I bet you they have not. There was a meme that said, hey, we're polling really good. Go on, James Shaw, say something stupid. And I mean, that wealth tax, it's really simple. When we pay rates, that's a wealth tax. That's and we pay proportionately around, considering for the rest of the world, we pay a lot of tax, and we pay a lot of land tax. And, James is trying to move this country towards being a carbon copy of California. And he's saying that will deal with inequality. The most severe inequality that is in the world today really feels like it is in California, where you've got the most homeless and the most richest people living only a stone's throw from each other. So that's a really, really sad thing for Green supporters. And, if you voted Green early, you can't take your vote back, and that's really sad. I don't think a lot of you would support that. Getting back to old mate, old mate hasn't answered any of the questions that were asked of him. And I mean, we could have predicted that here in our position. We've seen a lot of things behind the scenes that the public don't see. And, that we don't think necessarily offers too much to decipher, if you're sitting there thinking about whether or not to vote for him or not. But, you should really objectively read that story about what's happening there. And, I've got a lot of resentment towards that party, because I feel that it's, and all those that were going out saying we should combine little parties and all that sort of thing, because you've absolutely stuffed little parties in this election. And I don't know for how long. And we're going back to a first past the post election. And it's just so very, very sad. We've got stacks of policy and stuff as a specialist, from a specialist point of view, and from severely affected by policy point of view. And, you know, these people have been, they're trading on exactly the same thing that the major parties are doing, on populism. And, you know, we'd be better off with 20 minor parties and increasing the amount of ideas and things that are in the mix of things that people get to choose from, because it influences those big parties. If we don't have those little parties, if you merge them together, they're never going to get on. And, you know, that was so obvious very early. So look, you cannot make like this huge hammer that you're going to hit those big parties with, supposedly, and everything's going to turn into utopia. That's nonsense. If you can't get on with the coalition partner that you're in with, you become irrelevant. The Maori Party learned that, and, you know, and many little parties have. We get to make this MMP system work. Winston could say, "Oh, well, I made it work." Well, sorry, bud. I mean, you know, the 370 million that went off to China, and you've got running a provincial growth fund, and you didn't turn around and make sure that those jobs stayed with New Zealand railway workers. No, you're not New Zealand first, and so, you know, that's and the public, I think, is going to vote accordingly on a long career in politics, and really that was your hurrah. And it's to be where he got, and to have really, in the outcomes, measuring the outcomes, 0. You know, that's really sad. And but anyway, there might be some New Zealand First supporters. I'm not.
Yeah. Just a second. I'm going to interrupt. So Mike Isles, just going back to a quick recap of the dangers that, you know, creating this highway on, you know, the O2NL, which is the Otaki to north of Levin highway on wetlands. What are your thoughts on that, Michael? Mike. I always get that confused. Sorry.
There's a few questions in the chat, Sam, that ask that very thing. And the planners, it's up to the planners to plan these things properly and make sure that the combustible plants aren't put in there. But they don't do that. You know, they look at cheap is good. Whatever we can get away with, we'll throw in there. And as Mike said, the gorse is growing amongst it all now. And that's very combustible. That's one of the most combustible plants we have in this country. So, yeah, the planners know what they're doing, but they continue to make the same mistake. And that's where ATTICA's accountability policies would come into effect. These guys shouldn't be allowed to do that sort of stuff. You know, we shouldn't be allowed to put combustible material all the way from Otaki to Paikokoriki.
And do you think that a lot of people don't actually know about this in the region?
It's for looks, as Mike's already alluded to. It's nothing to do with the dangers of it. It looks good when you're driving past. Oh, look, they've put plants there. That looks good.
Like the fashion industry, isn't it?
the consideration of what could follow is never taken into account. There's another thing I'd like to add to that too. Wetlands, they produce a product which is called peat, and peat goes under the ground for lots of meters down. And if peat catches fire, you have a huge problem. It's very, very hard to put out. You have to dig it out and put it out that way. So if there is any peat, and I know there is along this coast, if the fires get down to the peat, and then that starts to burn and smolder, it doesn't just smolder away, it actually burns, because as the heat dries it out, as it moves through, it keeps burning. So peat is another one. If you've got peat swamps, another one. Yeah, we need to turn them into productive wetlands and have access points that you can go in and crop the productive wetlands and utilize it. Start up factories again. Produce it, make product out of it.
Awesome, thanks for that, Mike. We'll let Michael continue on his spiel.
That's actually a big point. That's a big point that Mike's made, is that, like there's the percentage of peat that runs through there is probably about 15-20%, and or some of it's shallow, some of it's quite deep, as Mike said. Especially Mackay's Crossing. I mean, there's been several diggers, as you'll know, Mike, that have actually gone to go through there and just disappeared really quickly. So, that's the only way you put a peat fire out, is you blow it up. It's you've actually got to get some jelly in there and blow them. But I remember as a kid there was peat fires that burnt for 10-15 years. So and that was mainly around sort of the Wairariri. There was the Wairariri fire that burnt for years. We had one down home here. When we first came down here, Dad wanted to pick up all of the wood, because wood just keeps coming up through peat, and so we put it all in a heap and set fire to it, and that burnt for about 5 years. But yeah, this is like the absolute reason. Well, the big shortage that Kapiti faces, and it always has done, is fresh water. And not just the fresh water to make sure that the environment's pristine, and not just the water for, say, irrigating your lawn or something like that, but the drinking water. And if you've got a truly functional living machine wetland you're actually producing natural fibres out of, and you're keeping it lush, the byproduct is underneath there is the most purest and cleanest water that you don't have to treat. And that would be huge for Kapiti going ahead, that everything that you were doing, making money in a wetland, was growing an asset, that the asset would reward Kapiti with the abundance of fresh water that they need. One of the things with those sorts of hills, like we've got, our hills have got multiple watersheds, whereas the hills around that area only have 2 or 3 sheds, and they don't soak any water in. They just shed the whole lot off. So everything that hits that hill, it goes straight into those wetlands, and you want them not to just send it on out to the sea, but you want it to slowly sink in and penetrate in and create a nice big full aquifer of clean water. And that's the Achilles heel of the growth expectations of Kapiti. And it's, imagine being able to have pure water out of the tap. Imagine being able to have the ability to walk those walkways that are in QE2 Park and really have a vibrant bird life. There was only a few birds there, and most of them were actually parry ducks. I can see they want to protect things like the geckos and the skinks and all those sorts of things, but that's not actually what was abundant in that area per se. Like there was actually a hell of a lot more stuff. And there's a little bit of a history problem there. The biggest thing that's in that area is glowworms, and like there was those sand dunes are just, they were teeming with glowworms that they sparkled, and the old people spoke of that, and that abundance that was there would have fed a teeming bird life. And so that's sort of food for thought. We'll get Soraya on soon, talk about this, talk about the documents that we've got up there. And I mean, these things, I mean, share them around. It's something that it's all food for thought, and we really want to be able to influence much better outcomes. And we want to cut off this. We really do think that this is, we're not trying to fearmonger or nothing. We really do think that that what we've actually planted along that area is a problem. And there's actually a lot of land. There's not a lot of land, but there's what land is left that isn't scrub and all that sort of thing. When I say scrub, I'm mainly meaning gorse, lupins, and things like that. That, you know, this land eventually, you know, where it's sitting like that, it's only got one outcome. It's going to become housing, and so it's just going to be concrete and lawn. There's a lot of land there that also could be going into something quite productive, and that helps, you know, like where the way Pram is by accident in a way, or by title, because these might be Maori blocks. There is a opportunity to have it not as a complete wall-to-wall, like a furrowed paddock of densified housing, but actually break up these spaces so that everywhere in walking distance, people could have a beautiful natural environment to enjoy and enhance their life. And, you know, that's the thing that, you know, we get to some of these cities that we've created in New Zealand, and they are, you know, people are being factory farmed in them, you know, and you know, Kapiti is at a, you know, the surge that's happened. You know, it's very important that we don't just turn all that into housing and miss this opportunity. So, Sarah, do you want to just jump on in? I'll squeeze over.
While she's talking, I'll update the text for you, but
No
I'll get to that in a second. That's very interesting, eh? You know, I'm just reading the comments here, and I'm just going back up to when we did start the stream. Is that there's a comment like, "How did the designers not plan this?" The designers have a design in mind and belief what was the traditional local biodiversity, but they didn't listen to the locals or iwi about what was in the area and kind of what was safe. So that's an interesting comment I just read.
Yeah, and part of it is, or the biggest part of it is that you know, trying to do the right thing and having one mindset basically. And it comes from creating. So if you just imagine a room, I've been in these rooms, okay, so just bear with me for a little bit. Don't actually be a bear, but just pause. So you'll have you know, young people, keen designers, and they just start throwing out ideas about what they think they've seen. And they say, well, I've seen marram grass. Well, it's like, yeah, it was planted there as an idea to try and control erosion. It's not necessarily that it was an abundance here. So we've got to have marram grass everywhere. It's like, well, you know, okay, toys. And it's like, you know, you're just going down a rabbit hole. Unless you really have that authentic intergenerational knowledge, or, you know, even from a farming perspective, you know, like, or I don't want to be ageist, but you know, older heads sometimes can actually, like, you know, straight away they'll just go, no, you don't want that. You don't want that bloody toy shit.
I'll just move forward.
Yeah. So this is Sarah, and Sarah is the secretary of ATTICA project, and she works tirelessly away as an obsessive compulsive, and puts everything together on the ATTICA Party website. She is the finesse of a very rough-shelled oyster that's sitting next to her. So, look, I'm really, it's, you know, it was wonderful to read this document and actually set these things down in one place and gather these things together. You know, a few questions that I didn't know. So, you know, Sarah, start by telling us just how many varieties there are of native flax.
Well, I don't know if there's over 60. I found an article about a woman who had collected, she was going around collecting all of the old traditional flaxes and trying to ensure that they were preserved.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So, and the fibre, the fibre from flax, You know, you've got some pictures up there of stripping it. In Foxton, they had machinery doing it. Elsewhere around the world, are people harvesting flax?
Well, it's a complicated thing. New Zealand flax is different to overseas flax. And we around the time we had New Zealand flax being processed, still processing it by hand was much better because the hand is gentler, and it would ensure that the flax, the fibres, stayed long and true. Whereas when it was the machine, it was crushing it and breaking it all down. So you have a mixture. Some people are still doing it by hand in traditional little groups and collectives and things like that, but a lot of it is done by machine.
A comment must have just popped up and you got distracted.
What was that? What was the comment?
I'm gonna have to pull the comments from you guys.
Yeah, no, I'm reading them as I go along. So yeah, I mean the main thing with when we say fibres, it's not just flax, though, is it?
Oh no, there's heaps. So well, there's one I like which you don't like, which is willow, because that creates a lot of basket weaving and things like that. So we could get rid of a lot of plastics by just going back to traditional old basket weaving. And most people can actually do that themselves. It's not a high skill, like there are high skilled people at it, but it's actually something that's really accessible to learn. I remember going to Girls Brigade learning how to weave, basket weave, things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's really an accessible way to make low cost baskets, which actually at the moment are incredibly expensive. There's nettle, which stinging nettle has a really bad reputation, but that has a similar fibre to flax. And there's also, I'm having a mind blank now. There's bamboo, which is really interesting because that's been used in construction in Asia for generations, but they've discovered new ways of processing it and putting it into fibres now. So it's actually incredibly interesting because it would actually, they consider it a replacement to plastic in terms of how quickly it can grow and be harvested. And so it's actually, and it's so versatile that it could actually be far better for New Zealand than pine trees because it's actually higher tensile strength. Pine is very, very weak and a very soft wood. It's, I think, next to balsa wood in its strength, and it has to be quite heavily treated with tannins and things like that to keep out all of the pests, whereas slower growing trees like kauri and things have a higher price, but bamboo sits in the middle where it would be a low cost, high productivity fibre that could do all sorts of things, like even from your toothbrush, you know, you can do so much stuff with bamboo.
Yeah, definitely.
We are actually buying these things at the moment. You can go down, you can buy bamboo toothbrushes and things like that. So we're sort of
yeah, they're made in China.
Yeah. So,
but 50% of the fibre industry or the clothing manufacturing industry has been moved to China. And I imagine there's a really high proportion in India as well. And that has happened really over the neoliberal era. Like previously, the UK had a huge fibre industry, Europe had a massive fibre industry, and New Zealand had a big fibre industry, and all of that was shifted off for shore.
China and all that, right?
Yeah, so it meant that companies could pay workers lower wages and extract profits, but they didn't drop their prices really. What they did was they kept more profits for themselves. But what it meant was that locally, people had less money to buy stuff. So, like when you've got a whole community with higher wages, you end up with people being able to keep the local market going. And even in times of where things are tight, you've got people always have a little bit of disposable income. And by destroying the value of labour and offshoring all of this stuff, it's sort of that we get a lot cheaper things, but it's come at the expense of people can't really afford them because there's so much poverty anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's a big part of it is actually is the actual diagnosis of how do we lose it. And part of the thing that made it vulnerable is that we were actually shipping off huge tonnages of raws, which is what we were sort of doing in Foxton. But we did process some of it. We had looms, and we were making all of the backings for carpets at Feltex there and things like that. But the thing is that we potentially, where we miss out, or what we still haven't got, is we need to involve fashion designers, like our local labs policy, where we're sort of trying to sort of, that the actual steerage group isn't sort of like, we've got the revival of the wool thing, and we think, oh, now that's going to come right because we've got these two big heavy hitter CEOs. Well, no, they're just going to go on a golf trip somewhere.
Extract the profits, just like the Fonterra guy and the
so it's coming
and the racing guy that's now in Wellington Council.
But we've got to get this right because we've got this opportunity with wetlands, and the thing that stops it. Okay, this is and Sarah's written about it in the article. The biggest thing is to revive an industry. You have to bring in, there is some machinery requirements and some processing requirements. I would think that this would be still hand harvested mainly. There'd be some areas that you could machine harvest if somebody designed the machine, but a lot of it would be hand harvested. But the actual processing part, we would have to design. We'd have to design a purpose-built machine that really did work with that, and we won't be wanting a waste product at the end of it. We're wanting to take the tannins out and use those tannins in the agriculture industry because we want tannins. At the moment, we're looking at trying to grab those tannins from seaweed and go and disturb the ocean. And what we should be doing is leaving the ocean alone and trying to grow those tannins here onshore. And like I spoke about, I thought it was very, very interesting. Need to find it actually and make sure that we put it up. There's a dairy company overseas. I'm pretty sure it's not here. Oh, big boot in the bum if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it is. It's what it does is it takes milk in, creates all these products right down to vodka out of the way, and the byproduct is a little bit of fresh water at the end, which they use for hosing the floor. So there is nothing wasted, and that's the kind of thing that we've got to really focus on and get to. That not only are we adding value to the products, but we're not having a waste product at the end of it.
Well, that's the thing with the fibres that I was talking about. Like when you have flax and things, they come in a stalk, and then you've got to soak the stalk and scrape the cellulose part off it, and that's generally been a waste product. But the fibre industry has been using that in viscose and rayon and a whole heap of other different fibres that are like made from those waste products, and they've also been putting them in paper. So it actually would extend out to a whole like big broad thing that you could experiment with a lot of different products that you could try, from fibres to papers to other different things. The one that I found really interesting is eucalyptus. That's been really popular as a new fibre. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that doesn't require any pesticides or anything like that because it's a tree that grows really quickly. So a lot of these, you're looking at what are the permanent things that can actually, like flax. New Zealand flax is really different to and European flax, because European flax, you plant it in a row and then it grows over about 200 days, and then you rip the whole plant out. Whereas New Zealand flax, you plant a plant, and then sort of every 2 to 6 years, depending on the plant growth, you harvest it from that, and that actually helps it because it's cutting out all of the it's not getting tired and old. It's actually forcing it to create new growth, pushing roots down into the ground and actually making that plant stronger. So that's why it's really good to have it on the commons, essentially, where you've got an independent group managing it, not just a corporation, because a corporation would push it as far as it can. Whereas when it's a community running it, they'll say, well, no, that needs to be harvested every 6 years. You can't harvest it. It needs more time to recover. And so that's where managing natural resources actually works really well if you're doing it on the commons rather than if you're doing it with a private corporation managing it and they're trying to just extract as much as they can as quickly as they can.
So I think it's great opportunity there, because we can also work on, we've lost so much flax genetic diversity because we've wiped it all out. And so bringing these projects back, or, you know, if they were to be uptaken, we'd be able to extend the genetic diversity of those 60 species, even interbreed them with some of the European species and so forth, and make some hybrids. You know, but making sure that we've got the original ones protected. You know, there's an enormous amount of opportunity in this to really develop quite an amazing byproducts, and obviously, you know, the biggest byproduct we're after is fresh water,
and jobs.
And jobs. But you know, can't reiterate that enough. The thing that we're facing, if we do not change, is that we will not have fresh water, and that's been the outcome of you know, a country that has sustained serious lobby from these groups that we've faced over the last sort of since 1980, so 1984. So you've written this in 3 parts, Sarah. So the first part is up on. Sam's going to share it across and stuff. But the first part of this series is called.
I don't remember, the fashion industry. The fashion industry hidden polluter, I think.
Yeah. So the first part brings you into the awareness that done wrong. You know.
Well, it's the second largest polluting industry in the world, and we have farmers getting a really, really hard time at the moment. And meanwhile, the same people probably hassling the farmers on Twitter and Facebook and things like that are very heavily invested in high fashion. And so every lunch hour going out, checking out what they can pick up. And that's actually contributing to a huge amount of pollution. And I don't know if I put it in the article, but they're estimating that if the sort of trajectory of the fashion industry carries on the way it is, that it could end up that it's actually in 10 years' time, it could be contributing 26% of the world's pollution.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly interrupt for a second. Hello, Carly. Welcome to the stream. I just thought we wouldn't leave you out there. You're in the stream, so yeah. Anyways, I'll let Michael continue.
And did you fix the template?
Yep, everything's all good. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, no, we did. And so the second part of this series, that's, you know, like, because what you know, long term, this is what, you know, we've got to be what we'd say was a high resolution focus on any particular thing that we've led a cause on. So the second part of this is about the flax itself and the natural fibres. Yeah. So what was that titled? Can you remember?
Rebuilding New Zealand's fibre industry.
So and that's up now on the website. And then the third part, you know, what are you going to title the third part?
Productive Wetlands.
Okay, so that's
pretty basic, isn't it?
Will you be asking me to contribute anything to that?
Oh, maybe.
Okay. So
are you going to stay awake long enough to answer the question? No, I just go into the books And I try and find things that I know will stump you.
Yeah. No. Well, the absolute thing here is that, you know, if we are going to affect change, these sorts of focused studies, and you know, looking at what we did, what other people do, what we've got at our disposal, what we could do, trying to imagine a better, you know, the best outcome that we can get. You know, this is what we've got to do. But you know, primarily it's not just about getting this yobbo into Parliament or something. It's about getting us all around that table so that the outcome of when the expressway is being designed, you know, the areas around the corridor, that, you know, we actually do get a say and our voices are heard. That's the resounding thing that a lot of the protest parties, or I won't say activist parties, I'll say, you know, a lot of
people that want change. Yeah.
The smaller parties.
The smaller parties is a protest voice.
Well, no, it's the people who tend to support smaller parties are more individuated. They have a specific thing that they're very passionate about that the mainstream is missing.
Mm. And you know, like, we have been overwhelmed by, you know, keeping it away from throwing bricks at people and actually giving a how this could be better, meaning the process of how it could be better, actually including people, and putting an equal value back into society of the normal person, and not making them meritless, and or want of a better description, making a superior class of people that are supposedly got far more merit than any of us mere plebs.
You mean the consultants?
Yeah, those.
And the bureaucrats.
Yeah, drips under pressure. Experts. Now, look, the thing is
the experts that it doesn't cost them anything if they get it wrong.
Yeah. So we've covered in this little bit here, we've covered quite a lot of convergent policy that's all based on the same wrong premise. And it could cost this country $4 or $5 billion in the end. It could also close the door on our marketplaces, and when our tourism industry does restart again, we're going to come back to the same old problems, that we're going to be copping flack for the environment has not got any better, and yet tourism wasn't here. So that's the thing, that, you know, we have this chance right now. And, you know, the way I look at it, I'm always in a hurry. But realistically, there's a lot of people that have good ideas that have not been able to progress them forward for probably 40, 50 years. You know, it was even before the forced Labour government.
Well, Muldoon wasn't exactly.
Yeah, no,
I continue ideas.
No, he wasn't. And I mean, you know, that's you know, take the left and the right thing away and just think of it from top down. We've got to make sure we do have a left and right, and it should be a real healthy debate about the issues, not about the person. It's like, go for the ball, you know, go for the ball, mate, you know. So this is what we've. I guess the next segment really is just a little tiny bit more about the sort of sadness. Now we've got Carly back. Carly's very, very good with inclusion, diversity, divergent ideas, and, you know, just want to sort of chew away a little bit on that, and just what we really. I'm actually really, very, very worried about a lot of these people that really did see hope and change again in this country, and as media say, you know, through what they might want to, you know, you may even be feeling that he's a false prophet now, but, you know, this means that, you know, you're feeling that you're not part of democracy anymore. You've only got these. You know, the bad guys are going to win again, and all the rest of it. It was all a big stitch up. Sorry, this wasn't a stitch up. This was not a stitch up. Put that aside and really look at it with eyes wide open. This was an absolute nightmare of no strategy and absolutely trying to bash your way into government if it was intended in the first place. And the other sad side to it is that once that money that all those good people sent to that party started flowing, something really bad happens with humanity when there isn't structure and rules around that money. And it's happened time over. It's happened throughout societies. If money flows like water, the morality goes out the back door. And I'm fairly sure that's what's happened here. And I really hope that this election doesn't just pass, and that this is not laid open and bare and fully transparent so people have actual closure here. I would assume, and this is an assumption and it's my opinion, that there is tax obligations around that money, because that money has potentially cannot be accounted for as it's been spent. And, we are about to see, maybe in the closing days of the election, just little things that you've got to do, like put authorised by on your signs. And that wasn't done. The way those signs were put over the top of other people's signs, that's just saying, I don't want to work with anybody. I want to be an absolute tyrant. And that's just not how this works. There's 120 members of parliament. I already think that the current two main parties aren't respecting all of their members that are in their party. And I've seen a little bit of that lately. A little bit, but not enough. We don't know who these people are that you're voting for when you vote for either of them. And, that's the biggest part of what the ATTICA project is all about, is making sure that we have specialised candidates and that you're able to have your voice. So, Carly, are you actually in the stream? I can hear you laughing at me. I've probably said something dyslexic.
So, I'm just asking what the question was.
I'm actually laughing. I'm actually laughing at the.
I'm still here. Don't worry.
My goodness. I'm laughing at the comments.
Oh no, that's all good.
I completely agree with you, though, Michael, because I think people are so desperate for change that they were just ready to take a stance with a messiah, so to speak. And I do hope that our intuitive feelings and what seems to be playing out actually don't turn out to be what we think it's going to be, because I think, in creating this movement, so to speak, they've actually killed diversity,
Killed democracy,
and they've killed critical thinking, which I think is an absolute must, actually, to maintain democracy and to maintain inclusion. If we don't think critically and we don't self-actualize. I'm a bit tired, as you can tell. If we don't self-actualize and we don't actually think about what is going on and just cling on to any kind of version of hope that comes our way, we become robots, basically, brainwashed. We become pawns in somebody else's game. And I think that it would be a great shame if it does turn out to be like that for so many people.
It's so easy to get caught up with somebody who's got like a charming personality. You see that on YouTube, and it sort of accelerated that cult-like behaviour in society.
I think the best thing that could happen though is that I would like to see is like, because we've seen this. Well, one of the great things about New Zealand politics is we've seen parties come up for probably maybe not the most moral or ethical or decent sort of intentions, and then we've seen those parties, the brand still stay there, or the registered parties still stay there, and that they slowly manifest into something that's got better intentions, and it's got more people, and they're able to sort of turn it into something else. It'd be a shame if it sort of looked there for a minute like, okay, hey, you're going at this sort of quite severe. You're making accusations that are pretty wafty, really, without sort of being able to sort of back it up, or more importantly, let's get rid of this Telegram thing. More importantly, I think the thing is, and I've tried to be more about, well, if not this, what? And I just never really heard the what, and that really worried me right from the get-go. I just thought, hang on, you're actually just, you're screaming at it like it's a terrible thing, like I scream at the Indigenous biodiversity thing, but it's not that I don't think people had the best intentions. They had the best intentions, but if you're not measuring what will that turn into,
they don't understand what silvopasture is, and so they don't understand why that's such a disaster.
So it's like, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, we've seen it time and again where governments have come in, gone out, repealed things, brought them back, and the we're not, when people talk about progressive politics, they're meaning, basically there's some things that aren't worth arguing about because they're obvious, and there's a lot of things that need more argument so that you really tease the things out to really make sure you're not going to have the most common thing is 99.99% of the time when you go to change something, it ends up worse than what it was before. So, and it's really how many people a lot of people can make a big difference to that. But, like the actual brand that was being sold, Carly, was basically, by population itself, by numbers, by an overwhelming number of people, something good will happen. And I just feel that that's madness of the crowd.
It is. I think that you're completely right when it comes to madness of the crowd, and it's a symptom that we have a whole section of the population that pardon me, that are disenfranchised and feel helpless, and that is why populism, which this is an extreme, becomes the sort of modus operandi, and it's not. I think the people who are part of the movement are genuinely concerned and genuinely want change, and unfortunately, like you said, it's all railing against the machine and not much solution-based thinking going on at all. And in an atmosphere of fear, you cannot be innovative or creative or active or contribute in any kind of way, really, in any kind of positive way. And like you said too, Michael, once, even if they do get into government, the worry is that who are they going to work with? How are they going to influence anything or anyone if nobody will work with them?
Yeah, and I mean, if you haven't got ideas and things and knowledge that you can sort of just put straight out there and really help your people. I don't know why you're there. You know, like if it's just to sort of knock out, like it's sort of like it's like a bowling thing where you're trying to, you know, knock out some skittles or something. I sort of like look, we all start somewhere. I used to throw bricks at Greenpeace. Now they follow me. I used to, we've all thrown bricks at SAFE or PETA, or we've all thrown bricks at DOC for some of the things that they do, you know, like the super berries. And, you know, the thing is it's, you know, and people throw bricks at the Green Party because of the super berries. But how do you know that all of them really want to do that? I don't think they do. I don't think the membership. I don't think that you could. You know, there will be a percentage that feel that that's a good idea. But you know, thanks to the new Conservatives that didn't care whether or not they had actually any ability to talk to anybody, they've been very vocal about that. Whereas, like, I'm being really cunning. I want to be able to be everybody knows my position on super berries, so I'm not. I don't have to tell you something that you don't know. But the thing is, you know, this is where we're at. We've got to, you know, be like this, you know, to try and beat these sorts of things. And then, you know, what worried me was he was saying all of this stuff and he's getting all of this traction, and it's sort of like, well, that doesn't make sense, because I don't even know why that. There's some things in the United States where they talk about, you know, censorship's really heavy, and some of the most worst things that you could imagine have got, you know, that they're almost, the platforms are spreading it, and it's almost like to say, here, look at these idiots. And that's what I'm worried about, because I look at a lot of the little parties, and, you know, even the religious parties, you know, there's not everything at all I'm going to agree with, but some of the things that they say still comes from a traditional kindness or morality that we cannot unwind out of the fabric of society. Otherwise, we really are into a secular religion, and that's you know, that was fascism. So we've got to be really, really careful that we include all voices, and we do so in a way that you know, you're able to you know, you're able to find what the best is. And I'm sorry, but, you know, like, I don't know what the best is in these three people that stood and took that movement, and geez, it got to dizzying heights, but I don't know what the best is in them, and that's really annoyed me, because there must be good in those people of what they were going to do, but I never heard what they were going to do other than yell and rail at everybody else. And I mean, that would be pointless. I mean, that's what question time's for. How the House works is you've got to go through this election campaign, and then you've got to work together with the supposed enemy. So otherwise, you're just you know, a decoration in the halls of Parliament, and you're just receiving a salary. That's it.
One thing I noticed when Carly was talking about the lack of critical thinking, Sam did an interview with somebody at one of those protests, and she was talking about the UN agenda that so many people rail against, and she hadn't even read it, and she was afraid of it, but she hadn't read it. And if you actually go through and read it, it's a regional development plan. And so I have an ethical problem with it, because I believe that people who don't live here and don't have any skin in the game in New Zealand shouldn't be having a say on how New Zealand develops. I think that's a form of colonialism, and I think that it's absolutely wrong. and that we shouldn't be subjected to it. But it's not anything like spooky or hazy or anything like that. It's people from another place who have determined what should happen here. And it may or may not be in the interests of people who live here. But that fear that was in her, it was almost like it was it was a big thing out there, where it's not. It's a very real thing. And at the same time, you can't just say, well, the UN's terrible. The UN rapporteur on food this week has come out and called out the World Bank and told them that how they're handling food needs to change, and countries need to be able to go back to food sovereignty and food security. That wouldn't be happening. There's obviously good people in the organisation as well as bad, and you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess though, without getting, because I was almost going to mention someone that's quite dear to my heart, which is the biggest whistleblower in history, who's been tortured, the UN rapporteur
on torture has been one of the biggest advocates for him, and yeah. So
obviously, watching the stream or you're watching it now, you know that we are quite well aware that anything that we might say, could trigger the ability for us to not speak to you. Now, that's the point I'm trying to make, is the Advance NZ party actually put us all in the position where we couldn't boost a post. So, and Sam and I were talking, and Sam played a good role in this. We took a problem and we talked about how we could fix it, and we talked about all of the stuff that he had tried to do to be notarized, and so he could be officially who he is, so that he could actually boost a post. And we sort of decided the way that the next election should be run, because this wasn't put out to everybody, we didn't agree to this, is that when you sign up, like when you go to pay your $300 and you're going to be a candidate, you fill out a lot of forms, and part of it is identifying yourself. And so at that point there, the Electoral Commission could also tick the box that you are who you are, and you could then, he could send a copy to Facebook, and you could have that copy and use that as your ability or allowance to be able to boost posts. Because you must be allowed to boost posts, because otherwise what's the advertising money for if you're a political party? Or, if you're trying very hard like we were as a new party, that's way within our budget to spend $20 on a post or $5 or something like that. That's an equal, that's an equal opportunity in a way, But we're sitting here now in the Pirate Party and the Tinky Winky Party are driving us mad, because in our timelines comes all these boosted posts, because of course they are verified, and us little parties, we've not, and we've done everything we can, but we can't get verified. So
and the biggest problem with
unofficially me.
So the biggest problem with the Facebook verification system is that it denies you, no matter how many times you put your ID, numerous types of ID, it keeps denying you. But here's the thing, like you said, when you want a verified page on Facebook, you have to do the verification process twice. So not only do you have to verify your identity for your personal page, you have to identify your identity also for the political page in a different kind of retrospect of a form, which means you have to go through 2 verification processes before you can even become a knowledgeable or a notable person that has a tick that is allowed to run ads on Facebook. It's really confusing. It was implemented after all this saga happened with, like you said, Advance NZ. It was implemented around that time, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember the exact date, but it's made it a hell of a lot difficult.
Right. We should fact check ourselves there, Sam, because we don't know for sure.
But it was implemented.
We probably leapt to a conclusion there,
but it was implemented this year around that time. That's what I can confirm.
Wasn't it? It was August, wasn't it? But we don't boost posts.
When we could boost posts, we tried a couple of ways, Sam, just to see how they went, and we weren't even that impressed. But then, it's human nature. Then when we couldn't, all we wanted to do was boost posts.
Like Facebook, just take the money and give us our audience. It's a really big problem, and it's just a part of the censorship kind of thing for smaller parties trying to reach an audience. I mean, Signs, they do an all right job. Like the ballot papers, they do an all right job, which has been proven. But if you want to pay for an ad on social media, you have to go through this verification process, and they make it damn difficult.
Yeah, like in the chat there too, it's really what we're used to in this country is if somebody's providing you a service and the service provider says, boost this post, and then you go to do what you've just been offered, they've tendered you a service, so you go to embark in that contract that's been offered to you, and then it says access denied. We're inclined as Kiwis to say, well, what's the most likely thing you're going to do? We're going to delete Facebook. So, and that's sort of sad because the thing is, I thought the idea was we did all of this stuff so that we became, the information highway. It's like the information's so scary that we've got to suddenly now choose who can drive on that highway, or who's licensed to drive on the highway, or who's banned from the highway. It's sort of, we're getting down to a funny sort of society. I mean, who's going to be left driving on there? I mean, Billy's still driving on it. That's good, because I really think let him speak as much as possibly can now. They should be boosting every post that he makes, because people really need, we would have been happy to get interviews, more interviews, the better. I love him. He's turning down interviews. Why? If you're going to represent your people, media say, here's the opportunity, mate, speak away, and you turn it down, it's like, well, aren't you really, have you withdrawn from actually standing as a candidate?
Well, like an interview is worth like $3,000 if you put it into perspective, comparing it to ads, and you don't have to pay one dime,
Mm.
You just can't control what they say about you, and that's, I guess, the
problem. The worst thing is if you've campaigned on wanting transparency and all of that sort of thing.
You're not transparent yourself. Yeah.
You can't do it, eh? You just can't do it. It's like there's 5.5 million of us, and we this small country, and we have like the Kiwi ethic is like, you spray it, mate. You say it, you spray it, mate. You front up, But look, hey. The scariest thing I've heard through the election campaign, I reiterate, it's nothing really that he said. He's not scary. The scariest thing was Winston when he said that he would have bought the army out. There was actually Billy's chance. He missed it. He should have had to. Winston should have had to himself. Been more challenged by media on that. Some of the media watch groups that we used to have had in this country would have in the past really sort of mulled that over. That was actually a really, really scary thing. I've not heard anyone that I can remember anyway. Some of the older people might remember some things as scary as that. I mean, we're not actually at war or anything like that. War hasn't been declared. That was very, very sketchy, and I don't know the relevance of it because everybody complied. We worked with this, it's like everything else. When the Christchurch earthquakes happened, it was the people that really put the big effort in. It's always been the people. The government doesn't solve much. It usually creates more problems than it fixes. And we're really it's always been like that.
No, you sound a bit libertarian there. Government, when you have public services, and those public services were run by people who actually cared about it, they were run well.
And then it's abundantly. You're right. I mean, that's abundantly like our health system only saved lives because of the determination of those people that are just really worth their salt that worked in there. Because it was a bit touch and go there for a start in connecting the things that were needed, and that was fairly well documented. But people probably weren't held to task enough about that. That really hindered those good people being able to do their jobs. But it still comes back to it. It was people that did the jobs, So
awesome.
So hey, look. So how do we feel, guys? We're at to Sam.
I was actually about to say we have to go for a little ad break before we continue. But if you're going to end it off here, then I'll do it after.
No, you can go to an ad break.
Okay,
and,
sweet. So we'll be back in about a minute, okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey everyone, this is Sam Hudson, the CEO of This Quality. If you do enjoy these live streams, consider donating by going to thisquality.com/donate to support local voices in your community. You'll also be supporting the development of our brand new media organization. We are aiming at changing the mainstream media to be less biased. If you believe in that, consider contributing today for just $1 or even 99 cents. It doesn't matter how much you donate because it all counts.
Okay, everybody.
Right,
so what we're going to do is try and wrap this up now. And just a few little messages to sort of help us out. Biggest thing we really need you to do is sort of just fix up that problem that we've got, that we can't boost anything. There's only a few days to go, and this phase of this whole experience is almost over for us, and we'll have to really evaluate the things that we did really badly, the things that we did good, and all that sort of thing. But we have got no idea what the outcome would be. I can't really get a feeling whether we've. I just feel that we haven't been able to. Would have loved the exposure that old mate got, but anyway. The really, really important thing is like many people have said, is if you don't vote, you can't complain. I don't like that statement. What's really, really important is there's a lot of people out there that really don't want to vote for the Tinky Winky Party or the Po Party or the Pirate
Red or blue.
The Pirate Party, whatever.
There is actually a party called the Pirate Party. You can't
Yeah.
Oh my! I wouldn't want to join that. I wouldn't want to join that party.
We will show you where the Pirate Party thing comes from, but after the election, because it's classic. But
no, there's a real Pirate Party too. Though.
Yeah. So the big thing is what I really, really want people to do is try and encourage people that especially have that have have had such a hard time. And I know you probably think that's all of us, but people that have never voted, and to get out there and vote, not necessarily, I'm not trying to say make them go out and vote for me or anything like that, but that's a good idea. The thing is we want, by next time around, like I found that when I first voted, then I just kept on voting. We really need that 30% that don't vote to start taking part of this. And, we actually see a really, really big need for the ATTICA project. That's the main thing that I want to tell you tonight, is that we see that what we're doing here and what we've started as a seed and what it grows into is so desperately important to bring the structure back into politics, the dignity back into politics, and to actually bring some real change with how. And, we don't sell hope here. And we tell you how it is, and we try to be, we want you to be a part of this. As we go forward, we're going to try and make things more interactive, and we're going to learn how we're going to learn the one good thing that maybe can be learned from somebody like Billy is how do we actually grow this platform so that we can speak to more people. And so we're going to try and be doing that. And obviously we're going to get verified as real people. That would be something that I've always wanted to be a real boy. I'm very much looking forward to that when MZ actually can basically feel that I am a real person. I haven't liked being for the last couple of months a non-real person, but anyway, so get out there and vote. Leave it if you can to election day, and really, really make sure. Like, I think people are going to show their true cards or their true colours now, and I don't think I would hate to be in. I'm pleased I didn't vote. I know who I vote for as the candidate, obviously, but I'm pleased I haven't made my party vote yet, because I need to know a lot more. And with things like that wealth tax out there, things like the tail trying to wag the dog, where the Green Party sort of saying, if you don't do this, da 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 da, and just looking at sort of the different smaller parties. I've been really busy with this, and one of the parties that really interests me is the Maori Party, and I've really got to go and make the time to actually hear more of what those other candidates in the Maori Party have had to say, because I just haven't seen any content. There's been a few debates with the lady that I see here all the time when I'm checking the signs, and I've never heard her speak. And I want to make sure that I do that, and I encourage everybody to to be well informed this time when we vote, and make sure it's people that are approachable. So anyway, that's Carly. You want to say anything other than I want to go to bed? Carly's actually back to work now.
I am back to work, and I actually only got back home today at 7:15. So
Okay.
it's amazing. 2 days, and it feels like it wasn't a holiday at all. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I think be informed, like any choice that you make, be informed, and then go with your gut and information.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? Oh,
It's a combination of intuition and information. Yeah.
sorry for cutting in before. How about you, Mike? Do you have anything to finalise this live stream tonight?
Yeah, I'd just like to encourage everybody to get out and vote. I think it's very important that we have a say anybody that is of age and eligible should, if they aren't registered, go along to a polling booth and register there, and they can do that and vote at the same time, or get out and vote before. You've got 4 days left till Saturday, people. Both Mike and I would like your candidate votes, one for Mana and one for Otaki for ATTICA.
And we've got that, it's in the ballot tomorrow, have we not?
There's one at Mungavan Ave, yep, in Porirua.
And you are taking part in it?
Oh, I definitely am.
So that's another thing to be watching out.
It will most likely be...
Come over, watch.
It will most likely be live streamed on his Facebook page, which is at Mike Isles ATTICA. So you'll be able to watch him speak and compete with the other candidates.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I'm going to go over and have a look too, because quite enjoyed that. It was quite cool. So
and let's hope in next election there's loads more things like that where people can actually interact with candidates on a real level and get to know them and get to know them on a who they are and how they react under pressure and how they interact with the public and what they actually really think about things, because it's very easy to sort of hide behind electioneering
formality, and formalities,
and put on a front, and it's and I hope there's loads more interactions. It's been quite hard doing the election over COVID with only sort of 100 people allowed in a room and masks compulsory and things like that early on. So we really missed having a lot of meetings, which is unfortunate.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to conclude it up for us. I'd just like to say, go check out ATTICA's website, which is www.attica, which is ATTICA.nz. Check out their policies, check out everything that they have to offer. You'll be there reading for a couple hours because there's a lot to read through. Sarah's done a really good job on that. Sarah's done a really good job on that, and I'd just like to say that this is like the actual stream where Sarah's actually been on for over 10 minutes. So it's been a pleasure to have you right next to Michael, having a good civil conversation. It made the stream a little bit entertaining. I'm sure the viewers love that too. And I just want to thank Mike and Mike Isles, not Michael Kay. But I've already thanked Michael Kay. Just remember that. I just get the names confused. And I want to thank Carly for joining in halfway through. It was even though you've had a long day, you've come in and joined in and had a good discussion. Excuse me, I got a croaky voice. That's going to be it for us, and if you just want to plug your other stuff like membership and all that, you can if you want.
Oh, the main thing is just go to the website www.attica.nz, find what you want there, and over the next 3 years we've got the more involvement. If you want to be involved from whatever level, obviously we will be selecting candidates fairly early, not right on the door of the election. No. One of the main things that we'll be doing though is we'll be looking for people to form the bulk of the party, which is the membership, and that membership we want people that really want or have lots of things that they want to see get moving in a particular field. I've got I've got high hopes that we can get people from law, high hopes that we can get people from the health industry, and all, basically people that are affected by things that we can see and we can't fix them or find a fix. Like we've been able to find some quick fix things for things because we've been able to have the people that are affected by it. So going forward, that's what we've sort of got to try and build up, and so yeah, that's that's really it from us tonight. We'll do a shorter stream tomorrow night, so Friday. Oh, sorry, no.
Technically, there's still going to be a live
really
stream.
long stream.
We'll be having content going out that day. Thursday's probably the last stream before the election. It's not cool to be streaming on election day, so we won't be streaming on Saturday itself. We'll respect that, and we'll just make our minds up what we do on Friday. So anyway, I'll be doing some Facebook Lives in between, obviously not on election day, and we'll make a schedule of things going forward over the next 3 years. So that's it from us for tonight, and thanks for watching. Those that come in and view the stream later or shorts of it, thank you. Please share this stuff out there, and come in. If you weren't watching live, come into a stream and give us some questions. We love questions, or tell us stuff. Like, that's the other thing too, I probably haven't said enough of, is tell us things that you really want to see changed, and maybe what you think might change it. So something to think of over the next 3 years. So thank you, everybody, and good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Ka
Awesome.
kite anō.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Hey everyone, this is Sam Hudson, the CEO of This Quality. If you do enjoy these live streams, consider donating by going to thisquality.com/donate to support local voices in your community. You'll also be supporting the development of our brand new media organization. We are aiming at changing the mainstream media to be less biased. If you believe in that, consider contributing today for just $1 or even 99 cents. It doesn't matter how much you donate, because it all counts.